Hi, I'm Nick, and in this video we'll be talking about why you get a yeast infection after your period. Well, to first understand why you get a yeast infection after your period, we have to define what after your period means. Is it a day or two after menstruation, or are we talking more like a week after menstruation? If you seem to get a yeast infection a day or two after your period, this perhaps indicates that your yeast infection is primarily due to a high vaginal pH or an alkaline vaginal pH. The primary sex hormone, estrogen, drops sharply before the onset of menstruation and remains fairly low for a few days after your period. About a week after menstruation, it begins to rise again and reaches its highest point right before ovulation. And estrogen levels are inversely correlated with vaginal pH, meaning as estrogen drops, vaginal pH will rise and become more alkaline. Now, estrogen levels fall sharply right before menstruation and remain fairly low for about a week after menstruation. During this time, the vagina becomes more alkaline as estrogen levels are low. And the yeast candida prefer an alkaline environment to live and grow in. So during this time, your vagina is more conducive to yeast overgrowth due to its higher vaginal pH. And when estrogen levels are low, the vaginal tissue is not synthesizing as much glycogen, which is a type of sugar. Estrogen stimulates the vaginal cells to start creating sugar. And sugar is a food for yeast. So when you get a yeast infection with high estrogen levels, the high amount of sugar in the vagina is a very possible cause of such yeast infections. So for yeast infections closer to ovulation, a little bit after menstruation, again, estrogen levels have started to rise and will reach their peak right before ovulation. Thus, if you get a yeast infection at this time, chances are you could have a yeast infection related to the amount of sugar in your vagina. So again, it's important to clarify just how long after your period you seem to get a yeast infection. Again, the yeast infections that happen right after the period, a day or two, these are perhaps pH related, and those that happen a week and a half after your period, close to ovulation, these are more likely sugar related yeast infections. So let's take a look at some of the research documenting estrogen's correlation to pH levels and estrogen's ability to cause the vagina to create sugar. A 1997 study published in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology used 172 different patients and analyzed how female sex hormones would relate to vaginal acidity. The study found that estradiol blood levels, which estradiol is a type of estrogen, correlated to these women's vaginal pH. As estrogen levels rose, vaginal pH dropped and became more acidic. As estrogen levels declined, vaginal pH raised and became more alkaline. The study also noted that lactobacilli bacteria play an important role in secreting lactic acid and acidifying a woman's vagina. Regarding estrogen's ability to cause the vagina to start creating sugar, a 1964 study published in the journal Endocrinology looked at this physiological process. The study used rats and administered 1 microgram of estrogen to these rats and found that they would produce 3 to 4 times as much vaginal sugar as the control rats who were not given any extra estrogen. Now, women who have unusually high levels of estrogen naturally probably don't have much more than about 0.5 micrograms of estrogen in their blood at their peak estrogen level, which is right before ovulation. So if you're taking a estrogen birth control pill, you could drastically raise the amount of estrogen in your body and therefore probably cause your vagina to create a lot more sugar. Therefore, if you're getting a yeast infection a week and a half after your period, and you're also on some type of estrogen birth control pill, you may want to discontinue using that pill or try to find one that contains a lower dose of estrogen, as this excess estrogen is likely supercharging your vaginal sugar production. Aside from reducing the amount of estrogen in your body, a great way to treat a yeast infection that happens a day or 2 days after your period is to douche with apple cider vinegar. This will help to acidify the vagina, which is probably pretty alkaline at this point, and wash out any sugar-rich cells that are left over from menstruation, which could possibly be a food for Candida. However, don't use any other type of douche, especially a synthetic douche with chemicals, as these products can interrupt and disrupt the normal bacterial flora in the vagina and also work to alkalinize the vagina. So if you've been douching with some type of artificial product after your period, this could be a key reason why you are getting more yeast infections at this time. Another way to acidify the vagina and reduce the amount of sugar that's in that area is to insert a probiotic pill containing Lactobacillus acidophilus. Now, these probiotics, preferably Lactobacillus bacteria, will start gobbling up the extra sugar and compete for resources and binding sites with yeast. Also, some of them will start secreting lactic acid, which will keep your vagina naturally acidic. So these bacteria will help fight off yeast infections by stopping their initial overgrowth before it even happens. Well, for more information on this topic, you can check out the article about it on Candida Hub. The link, of course, is just below in the description. And while you're there, you can find out about a plethora of natural remedies and treatments to get rid of a yeast infection. And you can also find out about a very powerful natural solution that will get rid of a yeast infection in about 12 hours and even stop recurrent yeast infections permanently. Okay, hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped answer some of your questions. I'll see you later.